Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jules, and this video I'm going to give you my September and October wrap-ups. Y'all, I'm combining them together. I did not do September how I normally do, which is where I do a video after each week and then I put all those together and post at the end of the month. So I didn't do that. So then I had to sit down and try and remember everything that I read in September. I recorded that video and then never finished editing it. Life be lifing. And then for October, I did record the first week and a half and then the week after that. And then life happened. My mom passed away and I didn't read hardly anything. I never did the last wrap up for my October video. So this is me now telling you this is just going to be pieced together from different videos. So I'm going to start with my September video and then I will pop back on and let you know when I'm starting October. And then I will come back and finish off October. Okay, here we go. This is September's wrap up. I'm here to talk about the books I read in September. I did not record these weekly as I read them. So I have my laptop, I have my notes because it's going to take me a minute to recollect all these books that I read in September. Since I didn't record as I went, instead of just going down in the order I read them, I am going to go ahead and categorize these by star ratings because really there's only 3 categories and one of them only has 2 books in it. So majority of the books I read were either 3 stars or 4 stars. I had 2 3.5 stars, no 5 stars, and nothing under 3 stars. So I thought it would just be easier this time to categorize it, even though it's not my preferred method anymore, but we're just gonna go with it, okay? So I read a total of 17 books. My average rating is 3.47. So I had 8 3 stars, 2 3.5 stars, and 7 4 stars. Okay. So let's get into it. Starting with my 3 stars, the first one I read was One Dark Night by Hannah Ritchell. I had an arc for this one. So since it is an arc, I am just going to read my detailed review of this to you. It says, we start off on a Halloween with a bunch of kids from an elite private school having a party in the woods. There's a legendary ghost story about Sally in the woods, and some of the girls are dressed in costume like her. By the end of the night, one of them is dead at the bottom of a cliff. I was pulled in right away and then it fell flat for a while. It was a slow burn police procedural story. There is a lot of interviewing of the school kids and trying to verify everyone's whereabouts and get their alibis and flesh out any secrets. There were times where I was just kind of bored with it. However, it did pick up the second half of the book and kept my interest. It is a good plot and there is an unexpected twist at the end. Overall, it was a pretty good read, but definitely more mystery than thriller. And there you have it. My next 3 star was also an arc, and it was The Marigold Cottages Murder Collective, which is a very long name, by Joe Nichols. I'm just going to read my review for that as well. We're following an eccentric group of tenants that rent from a kind yet quirky landlady, Mrs. B. She sees the good in everyone and believes the best in people. She ends up renting to an ex-con, and shortly after he arrives, a body is found murdered on the property. He is taken in as the prime suspect, but Mrs. B insists that he did not commit the crime. She then turns herself in as the killer, but all of her tenants know she didn't do it. They don't know why she is trying to protect the new ex-con tenant, but they care for her a lot, so they decide to try and prove that neither of them committed the crime. This had a little bit of a slower start than my liking, but it was setting up all the characters. The tenants all have distinct personalities or backgrounds, so it wasn't too hard to keep them all distinguished from each other. I didn't really connect with any of them except for Mrs. B. I really like her independence, kindness, and spunkiness. This reads pretty similar to The Thursday Murder Club, which I didn't care for. However, I did enjoy these characters more than that book. Basically, you have a group of people brainstorming, interviewing, and puzzle piecing everything together to solve a murder. Overall, it was okay for me. So if you enjoyed The Thursday Murder Club, you may enjoy this book. It was just a mid for me. My next 3 star was On Thin Icing by Ellie Alexander. This is book 3 in her bake shop mystery. So we are continuing to follow Jules in her bake shop called Tort. It is the off season, so it was in the winter. So the director of the theater in her town has asked her to cater like an off-season retreat that they're doing, so it's off-site. So her and another employee end up going and driving to this location, and they're staying at this place. It's like some type of a hotel that they're staying at, and they're going to be catering all the food for the entire weekend. And one of the bartenders that's also working the event ends up found dead in the freezer, and so they have to try and figure out who killed the guy. Jules's ex-husband ends up showing up at the retreat, and she's a little surprised by that, but her mother told him where she was at, and so he ends up helping her try and figure out who the killer is. So this one was just okay for me. I don't know if it was just the timing of when I read it or the story, but I didn't love it as well as the first two. I gave the first book in the series 5 stars. I gave the second book 4 stars, and I gave this one 3 stars. So hopefully they go back up because this is a series I'm starting to collect. I've already purchased a handful of these books already. So let's pray I don't have a Noodle Shop mystery repeat, because after I read the first couple of that, I was like, oh, I love this. I want to own them all. And then they were just mid. And I was like, I don't have time to like just keep reading a mid cozy series. So I'm crossing my fingers that they get better. This is a beloved series, so I have high hopes that they are all going to continue to be good. My next 3 star is Cricket House by Agatha Christie. I read this for Gwen's book club and it was okay. Like, I didn't love it, but I didn't not love it. Like, I was surprised by who the killer was. Okay, I was surprised at that, but like, I didn't love the writing. It was just okay for me. For those that don't know what this one's about, this is a rich family all lives together in this mansion area. The head of the household ends up being poisoned, and so basically everybody's pointing the finger at each other on who it would be, like basically assuming that it's the younger wife, you know, for his money, and so everybody's at each other. So then somebody comes in and is just kind of investigating everybody to figure out who the killer is. And I did not guess who the killer was. I was surprised by that. The next book I picked up was Monster Blood for Breakfast. This is a Goosebumps Horrorland. I do rate my Goosebumps books. Obviously, my rating of Goosebumps and middle grade and things like that is completely different than regular books. Like, the way that I rate books is different based on the genre. So obviously a 3-star middle grade rating is not going to compare to a 3-star, you know, adult fiction or fantasy romance and thriller, things like that. But so I did go ahead and give this one 3 stars. It was average. It was okay. Like, you know, just a decent, like, I wasn't bored, but it was just kind of the same premise. There's a lot of Monster Blood books, so they're just different versions of the same premise. Someone gets monster blood, it's like slime, it ends up growing, it gets out of control, bad things happen. So that was all right. My next 3 star is Vampire Breath, which is also a Goosebumps book. Also just kind of an average one for me. There's some kids in a new house. They go in the basement, they find a secret compartment or secret room, and they end up finding a bottle. It ends up having vampire breath in it, and they end up releasing this vampire who needs vampire breath to continue to live. They end up kind of in this like alternate reality somehow, or like a different dimension that they have to try and find their way back to. So they end up in this like castle with these vampires. So it was okay. Not a favorite of mine, but it was all right. My next 3 star is The Housemaid is Watching by Frida McFadden. This is book 3 in the Housemaid series. Obviously, I can't really talk much about it because if I tell you things, you could still get spoiled to things from the first couple of books. I just thought this one kind of started out really slow. It had a really intense paced last part of the book or second half of the book, but then I feel like the wrap up was a little bit weak for the series. I feel like it could have been a little bit better. So it was just average for me. And then my last 3 star is The Last Resort by Erin Entrada Kelly. This was also an arc I had, so I will just read my review for you. I lied. I'm not going to read my review for you because I haven't added it yet. I apparently need to go do that. That's my NetGalley. And I kept knowing, I was like, I need to do a review. I think there's one I haven't typed up yet. It's for this. So I'm just going to recap this synopsis to like refresh my brain. So it says, Lila's estranged Grandpa Clem dies, throwing a wrench in her plans. And now she'll have to spend the summer in Ohio while her parents decide what to do with Grandpa Clem's creepy Victorian inn. It's supremely unfair. How can she show off the new and improved Lila from so far away? Even worse, strange things keep happening. En route to Ohio, the family gets into a scary car accident. No one's hurt, but the remainder of the trip is odd. At every rest stop, Lila sees people in weird old-fashioned clothes, people no one can see or hear. Lila convinces herself it's just her overactive imagination until the day of the funeral when she spots an old man sitting in her grandfather's favorite chair. She does a double take. It's him, Grandpa Clem. He tells Lila that he didn't die of a heart attack. He was murdered, possibly by someone who wants to control the inn. because it's not a normal bed and breakfast. It's a portal between the land of the living and the realm of the dead, a hotel for ghosts passing on to the afterlife. With the help of her skeptical brother Caleb and their new ghost-obsessed neighbor Teddy, Lila, the girl who's vowed to be less dramatic, must uncover her grandfather's killer and stop the evil spirits desperate to make their way back into the human world. Okay, that did refresh my memory a little bit. She's estranged from her grandpa because it's her dad's father. So Lila's dad grew up in this B&B, and the dad was always like kind of kooky and said he could see ghosts, and he was always talking to ghosts, and her dad didn't want anything to do with it and was like, no, it's not real. And so they never visited grandpa because dad left and like they never went back, but he left him the house. On the way to the B&B to like figure everything out, to settle the affairs, they got in that wreck, and then all of a sudden Lila is able to see, I think she had kind of a near-death experience in this wreck, and so she ends up being able to see these ghosts now. I think it just kind of like amplified her ability, if you will. So she can see ghosts. So she starts talking to this ghost, and then obviously she sees her grandpa and he says he's murdered. So then she sees the new neighbor kid, Teddy, and she tells her brother. She doesn't want to tell her parents that she can see ghosts because the dad's like, absolutely not, with his grandpa, he's not open to it. I was just kind of bored through some of it, but it's basically her seeing these ghosts, talking to these ghosts, trying to piece things together to figure out, who would have wanted to kill him. Yeah, it was just okay for me. So I guess I need to go add my review for that. Moving on to my 3.5 stars. The first one is Death with the Dark Red Rose by Julia Buckley. This is book 5 in the Writers Apprentice series. I love all these characters. I have really enjoyed this series. I just didn't love the plot of this one. It was almost too much like... There was like some shady things happening with this corporation that is in town that's like trying to build or something. And honestly, I really don't even remember because I didn't love the plot. So I can't really tell you a lot about it because I really don't remember. But I do know that the last book I'm going to be reading is set in winter. So I'll be reading that probably November, December time. My next 3.5 was The Fifth Horseman by James Patterson. I'm not going to go into this one. I have detailed thoughts on this in a vlog I did for the Survive the Night readathon, so I will link that vlog below if you want to go there and hear my thoughts if you haven't already. Moving on to my 4 stars. The first one I read was Too Old for This by Samantha Downing. I had an arc for this one, so I am going to read you my review. I said, this was a fun time. We're following Lottie, who is a retired serial killer. Lottie was accused of some murders decades earlier, but there was no evidence against her, and she was never arrested. Her name, however, was all over the media, and she had to take her son and leave town. Now her son is a grown man with kids of his own, and she is old and just trying to live out her quiet life by going to church and having regular bingo nights with friends. An investigative reporter unexpectedly shows up and starts asking questions about her past. She's making a docuseries about people who are wrongfully accused of crimes and wants Lottie to be in the film. Lottie wants no part of it and will do anything to keep her name out of the public and her secrets buried. Unfortunately, getting rid of one problem brings on another and then another, and things start to snowball. Also, someone from Lottie's past still thinks she is guilty and isn't giving up on taking her down. I loved the cat and mouse story and thoroughly enjoyed the dark humor along the way. It was such a fun time hanging out inside Lottie's head. She's a witty spitfire. Don't piss her off. Had a really good time with this one. Definitely highly recommend reading this book if you have not already. My next 4-star was How I Met My Monster by R.L. Stine. Goosebumps, Most Wanted. This one, I did not see how this one was going to go. So we're following Noah, and him and his best friend live in the same apartment. A new kid moves in, and then some weird things start happening, and he thinks he sees some kind of beast or like something happening, and he swears that this new kid is like a werewolf. He's like a little beast, and he's like always trying to find evidence of it. But it turns out that there's some fishy stuff going on, not just with the new neighbors, but like a lot of the people in his apartment complex. So I had a really good time with this one. Like I said, didn't expect which way it was going to go. So 4 stars for that. My next 4-star is Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. This one is set around Halloween, and Jet, there's like a big town festival thing that happens, and Jet ends up going home, and she gets hit over the head and goes to hospital, almost dies. And she is diagnosed with like some type of a rare thing that's happening inside of her brain, and basically they tell her that she can either have a surgery and she has like less than 10% chance of living. I think it was 10%, maybe even smaller. Very, very, very small chance of living after the surgery or through the surgery. Or she has, like about 7 days to live and she can just live out, her best life for the next 7 days. A little far-fetched of some of the things that she's doing in this 7 days, but it says not quite dead yet. So obviously she chooses to not have the surgery, and she's going to try and figure out who her killer is because she's going to die. So then whoever attacked her will be her murderer. So we spend this whole time with her and her best friend going over everybody she knows who could possibly want to kill her. I have detailed thoughts of this on Gwen's podcast, Talk Bookish to Me. So if you go to Spotify, you can look up Talk Bookish to Me. And there is an episode where me and Gwen and Brandon talk all the spoileries about this book. My next 4-star was The Housemaid's Secret by Frida McFadden. Really had a good time with this one. I didn't see the way that it was going to be going. Obviously, I can't tell you a lot about it. We are following Millie, who was the main character in the first one. She has a different job, different things happening. Yeah, I had a good time with this one. That's all I can really say. If you haven't read these, you should read them. My next 4-star was Broken Girls by Simone St. James. I had a good time with this one. I'm not going to talk about this one either because this is also in my Survive the Night readathon vlog, along with The Fifth Horseman. So if you want my thoughts on either of those, you can go check out that vlog. My next 4-star is Finders Keepers by Sarah Adler. This is my blinged copy. This was the Betty read I did for Gwen's Patreon. We discussed this when we were on our book retreat. So we're following Nina, and she's recently single, doesn't have a job, moved back home with her parents, and then her neighbor, Quentin, happens to also be at his parents' house. I guess he's back to like try and sell the house and things. Her and Quentin were really close friends growing up. She had a crush on him, hoping that he felt the same way, and something happened and like their friendship just kind of broke, and neither of them talked to each other for years. And now they're back and they are reconnecting, and they are going on a treasure hunt because before their friendship breakup happened, they were on the hunt for this treasure that was happening in the town, and like nobody has supposedly found this treasure, so they are determined to try and find it again. So yeah, it was really cute. I liked the connection. So it was basically just like an old friends to lovers. Yeah, it was cute. And then my last 4-star was Lights Out by Nevessa Allen. Yeah, this was spicy. This was spicy, but I had such a good time with it. This was hilarious. I was laughing. I love the banter and the relationship between the two main characters. This has vibes of Butcher and Blackbird, but not as murderish, I guess. So the female main character is a trauma nurse, and she kind of has this weird kink with this obsession of this guy online. He has a channel and he wears these like Halloween masks. He wears like a Halloween mask, but he's like shirtless or naked but covered up. It's like probably like OnlyFans, but like not showing like all the goods. Anyway, it's like a fetish thing. Anyway, she's into that. And then there's this guy that she's been kind of seeing but not seeing. Like they're not like together, and she asks if he'd be interested in doing that, and he's like, no, hard pass. So she had sent him like this screenshot, I guess, of the person and saying, do you want to do this or whatever? And he showed it to his roommate. The roommate ends up being the guy that is doing like the mask that has these videos. The roommate doesn't know that, but they're like BFFs, right? And he's like, oh my God. He's like, no way is she into this. And so then he starts, and which they had met at one point when she had stayed over at the guy's house one night. It's like a next morning making coffee type, passing in the kitchen deal. And he thought she looked cute. So he's like, oh, wow. He's like, she's into this. So then he starts looking through all his comments and seeing like who's liking his videos to see how much she liked it. And she really likes it. So he's like, oh, she really likes this. And so he's like, oh, she's got this kink. And then he starts kind of like stalking her. And she has this weird, Y'all, there's just some weird kinky obsession things in this, okay? I don't want to go too deep into it. Anyway, the two of them are meant for each other, okay? They're both a little unhinged. They both have some weird fantasy type things, but they're like perfect for each other. But anyway, the banter is so good. It's so funny. So that is the 17 books that I read in September. I was on the struggle bus trying to recap all of this. Y'all, this is why I like to do weekly recaps, is because I remember the books better when they're fresh in my mind, okay? And now we are moving on to October's wrap up. I'm here to talk about what I read in October. I am going to do this the way I prefer, which is a weekly recap. So this is me for the first week and a half of October, and then a new version of me will come back after each week to give you a recap. First book I read was The Pumpkin Spice Cafe. I did not have a physical copy of this. I just listened to this on audio. I loved it, and I loved it so much that I ordered all of the books. So minus the one that is getting ready to come out or just came out, I have the first 5 books coming. I'm so glad I finally got around to reading this because it was such a fun time. And like, I did not feel like it was that spicy, people. Like, I don't know anyone out there who's like, this was like spicy. Like, I didn't get that from it. Like, there were like spicy scenes, but not like that spicy. Like, I've read more spicy than that. But I also didn't come in until well after like 50% of the book. So, which to me is okay because you like building that relationship and then, you know, they hook up. So it is set in Dream Harbor, and Jeannie inherits the Pumpkin Spice Cafe from her aunt, and she meets Logan. So this is a grumpy sunshine. Logan is obviously very well known in the community. It has small town vibes. Everybody loves Logan. They're very protective of Logan. And obviously Jeannie's not there to like start a romance, but they have a connection. Logan's past relationship, he was burned. He was burned bad. So he has a lot of scars, okay? So he doesn't really want to open his heart up to anybody, but he also really likes Jeannie. It definitely does have a cozy mystery vibe, I feel like, without a murder mystery. There is kind of a mystery, though, happening in the book. There's like vandalizing that's happening. Seems like somebody's trying to sabotage the cafe and like doesn't want her to succeed. So we do get her trying to figure out like what's going on with that or what's behind that. So it does still kind of have that like cozy mystery vibe. There's just no dead body. It's like a cozy mystery vibe minus the body, but with spice, with romance. I mean, some cozy mysteries have romance, but they don't have spice. But yeah, I really liked it. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars. And like I said, I have all of the books coming because I'm going to read them all. The second book I picked up was Glorious Rivals. This is book 2 in the Grandest Game series, which is a continuation, if you will, of the Inheritance games. So there is a lot of talk of people from the Inheritance games, and actually it was a little bit confusing to me, some of the people, because she was pulling back people in this book that were like early on in the Inheritance games. So in the Grandest Games, which is book 1, there is some contestants that are coming to this area to play this Grandest Game, basically to win a lot of money. So in that one, there was a whole competition, but it didn't end the game. So like, it was just like people got out of the game, but then this is the continuation of that game. So I didn't love, like, and obviously I can't tell you a lot because I don't want to give anything away since it is a part of a series. So they're paired up in teams. So there's like a team working together, like a team of 2. There's like 3 teams of 2 that are like working together to like solve these clues. And it just kind of seemed a little repetitive to me because they were all going after the same thing, like trying to figure out the same thing. So like when one team would get there, you would learn about it and then they'd like sign off on it, but then the next team would come and it's like not revealing anything new because it was already like figured out. I don't know. In the Grandest Game, the teams were all doing kind of like different things. Like they had different missions, if you will. And this one, they didn't. So I didn't love this one as well. I still ended up giving it 3.5, and I'm definitely reading the 3rd book because this one ends with a cliffhanger. So there is a 3rd book coming out in July. So I will for sure be reading it. The next book I picked up is Tightrope by Julie Mulhern. This is 19 in the Country Club series, and I love this series. This is one of my favorite cozy mystery series, also set in Kansas City. So we're still following Ellison and her circle of people, and a body shows up in a trunk at the country club, and it has like the signature of like a mob hit, right? So it's basically them trying to determine if it was a mob hit or if it was somebody else. Yeah, so I love these characters. I'm so glad she's still continuing writing these. I think there's another one coming out soon. So yeah, so I'm definitely going to continue reading these as long as she puts them out because I love all these characters. So I ended up giving this one a 4 stars. The next book I picked up was The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. I don't have the physical copy of this. I did, but I already sold it. It's on Pango. So I ended up only giving this one 3 stars. I enjoyed the beginning of it and I enjoyed the end of it, but the middle just seemed very kind of repetitive and slow and like, let's go, what are we doing? So our main character is a reporter. She is invited to go onto this yacht for like this big like fundraising event, and the owner of the yacht, his wife is sick and dying, and so it's going to be like this big charity foundation thing, and she is on this boat and she hears some commotion next to her cabin, and then she hears a big splash and she runs out onto her deck and she sees a body like sinking into the water, and then she looks over and there's like blood, there's like a bloody handprint on, you know, the wall. So she freaks out, calls everybody, and she's like, somebody in the cabin next to me, they either fell overboard or got pushed overboard or whatever, and they're like, there's nobody in that cabin, that cabin is empty. And so then it just proceeds to make her look crazy and that she doesn't know what she's talking about because at the beginning of the book she had like a break-in and she was kind of paranoid about things, and she's been on medication for some other things, and so it just, those things adding up made her seem like a very unreliable character. And so she just kept saying, I know what I saw, I know what I saw. Majority of the book is her like trying to figure out who this woman is and going and asking like all of the, I want to see all the crew if it's none, because they're telling her that all the guests are accounted for, and she's like, well, then it wasn't a guest, maybe it was a worker. And so she's going through like trying to look at everybody. Yeah, so it was kind of slow in the middle, but yeah, I did enjoy the ending of it. Was pretty exciting. I did recently also watch the movie, which was pretty different, but I also did enjoy the movie. But there was definitely some differences in the movie than there was in the book. And then the last 4 books that I read last week were for Gwen's Creature Feature readathon that we did. I read Rom-Com by Olivia Dade. I buddy read this with Gwen. She didn't love this as well as I did. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. This was a super fun time. So in the beginning of the book, there is a little map that basically shows how you can get into their little areas that they're at. And these are like walls. So it's a containment zone. So they have like a moat and then a wall and then like access doors to get into it. So these are walls and moats and walls and moats. So you have to go through multiple to get in. Anyway, there's a breach. There's zombies. And Edie sees her neighbor, realizes there's a breach when she sees a zombie. And her neighbor is outside and she sees him and she's trying to help him, but she didn't have anything. Like the only thing in her hand was a burrito. So she's like attacking a zombie with a burrito, trying to help her neighbor, when her neighbor ends up killing the zombie. And the neighbor originally, they've been neighbors forever, but they don't ever talk or anything. But the neighbor came across as like a really kind of like stupid, chill bro guy. And then he's like, woman, what are you doing? And he has this accent. She's like, why are you talking like that? She goes down, he takes her down into his basement, finds out he's a vampire. He's a very old vampire and his name is Gaston. And she's like, seriously? She's like, your name's Gaston. And then she starts the song from Beauty and the Beast, and she's like, no one fights like Gaston. And like, she just started singing, adding all these like names, and he's like, stop it, woman, stop it. Yeah. And so then like randomly throughout this entire book, she'll just start singing different lyrics to that theme song from Beauty and the Beast. I was cracking up. Their banter is hilarious, but there is some spice in it. It's definitely a spicy romance, but yeah, I really had a good time with it, and I will most likely continue in the series. So obviously through this book, they were trying to figure out how the zombie breach happened. So they have to venture out, even though Gaston's saying, we can stay down here until everything's fixed or whatever. And she's like, no, I have to warn the other neighbors, like neighbors being in like the other areas of the quarantine zone. So she's like, I'm going whether you're going or not. So then he's like, obviously I'm coming, woman. So they form this bond as they're out, like trying to get to these other neighboring areas to like warn people of this breach and killing zombies. And yeah, they come across some other people that form up this group to try and like, you know, figure out what happened to contain the zombies or get them, you know, to get their area secured again. But yeah, I had a good time with it. The next book I picked up was a Goosebumps book. I picked up Werewolf Skin for one of the prompts. I really had a good time with this one. I was not expecting this to go the way that it happened. So it was pretty creepy. Like the kid goes to stay with these Goosebumps books, the kids are always going to stay with grandparents or aunts that they've never met before or whatever. It just cracks me up. But goes to stay with an aunt and uncle that he doesn't know. And they're like, don't go to that house next door. You can't, you know, they're very private people. You can't go there. And then some other couple kids in the town are telling him that they're werewolves that live there. And so he likes photography. So he wants to go out and take all these pictures in the nature. And he thinks he's going to try and like sneak out at night to, you know, find a picture to see if there's really, you know, werewolves or whatever. And the nighttime scenes when he's out are pretty creepy. And I did not expect how it ended up being at the end. So I enjoyed this one. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. Then I picked up Play Nice by Rachel Harrison. It was creepy. It was creepy. It wasn't, the haunted house part of this doesn't really come in until like over halfway through the book. So the first part of this book is basically, we've got 3 sisters who were estranged from their mother because they lived in this house with their mother, and you know, she thought it was haunted, and she wrote a book about their life living in this haunted house. Everybody thought she was crazy and thought she was making stuff up, and you know, the father didn't think that the kids were safe with her, and he ended up taking the kids from her. So the youngest sibling, she doesn't remember a lot of this stuff that happened. The 2 older ones are like, well, it happened, you know, and she's an awful person. Well, mom ends up dying and leaving the house to them. And the olders are like, we don't want anything to do with it. And the younger sister's like, okay, I'll go in, I'll fix it up, I'll sell it, you know, be done with it. So she goes and she's staying at the house to fix it up. And then stuff starts happening. But the mom left an annotated copy of her book to the daughter. And she's starting to read it and read things that happened. And then she's like, did that really happen? She's like, I don't know if I have it, because she doesn't know if she remembers that really happening or if her mom was just making that up. And so, yeah, so a lot of this book was just like the relationship between the siblings and their differences of memories of what happened and their differences of opinions of the mother. And then their dad and the stepmother are in this as well. So you've got that relationship and the dad saying, you know, this is what happened or whatever, but she's reading things about her dad that she didn't know. And she's like, are those true? And so it's kind of a family drama with a little bit of the haunted house element in it. So I really enjoyed it. I gave this one 4 stars. And then the last book I picked up was a Goosebumps graphic novel. It was Monster Blood. I didn't even log this in Goodreads and I didn't rate it either. But it's probably a 4 star just for the fact of like the nostalgia of it, of the story about Monster Blood. The colors in this book are just super vibrant. And like, yeah. So I had a good time reading it. It was a super, super fast read. Again, the kid has to go stay with his aunt that he's never met in this town for like a couple weeks while his parents go on vacation or do something for his job. And they go into town to this toy store. He meets, you know, neighbor kid. They go into town to this toy store. He buys this can of Monster Blood. They pull it out and it just appears to be slime. So they're playing with it. And then it starts growing. So then he gives some to her. He's like, here, take some of this. And like, it just keeps growing and getting bigger and bigger. And they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with it. And then, you know, obviously they figure out how to, you know, get rid of it. Just for the nostalgia alone and the color and the graphics, yeah, alone, you know, 4 stars. So, all right, I'll be back next week with more updates. Hello, I am back with some updates with the books that I read last week. I managed to read 4 books and 3 of them are in a vlog. So I will link that vlog below. I'm not going to talk about these, but I'll just give you my star rating. So it is a cozy mystery vlog. So the first book in that vlog was Mischief Nights or Murder. I loved this, gave it 5 stars. The second book was The Ghost and Mrs. Muir by Krista Davis. This one was okay. These two were very similar in their story plot, and I love this one because it was funny, and this one was not. And I think if I had read this at a different time, not so close to that one, I would have rated this higher. I did give this one 3.5 stars, but again, if it wasn't so close to the other one, I probably would have rated it higher. And then Autumn and Alibis by Jules Machel. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. Loved it. So if you haven't already watched that vlog, head there to get all my thoughts on these fall cozies. And then the last book I picked up was Raising the Horseman by Serena Valentino. Look at this cover, y'all. I love this cover. This was probably more of a cover buy, but obviously this is a new age retelling of the Headless Horseman. It is YA, and I didn't really love it. It was just kind of average for me. I ended up giving it 3 stars. But basically, our main character, Kat, is just trying to figure out what she's doing with her life. She's in a relationship with a boy that she doesn't really like. She used to. Like, they grew up together, and they're just kind of growing apart, and he's, you know, being different. So Kat ends up getting a journal that has passed down from her ancestors, whose name is also Catherine, which she's named after, and they have ties with the Headless Horseman in a way. So obviously there's the legend of the Headless Horseman, and as she's starting to read this diary, she's starting to like see her ancestors' ghost, and it goes back as far as finding out the real story of Ichabod and the Headless Horseman. I mean, it was okay. I love the cover way more than I love the story, but I'm gonna unhaul it because it's not something that I would read again. But yeah, 3 stars on this one. And now I'm back to talk about the 4 books that I read the last 2 weeks of October. Yeah, I didn't read much because I was going through it. The first one I finished was A Grim Reaper's Guide to Catching a Killer. I gave this one 4 stars. This was really cute. So we are following Kathy, and she works for, let me look at the acronym. She works for Scythe, and it's Secure Collection, Yielding, and Transportation of Human Essences. Basically, she's like a Grim Reaper. So when someone dies, her job is to go and transport the soul to wherever they need to go so that they can move on. When she goes to collect her soul, who is a 17-year-old kid, he is like, "Why did you kill me?" She's like, "What do you mean? You died of like a seizure. Yeah, he had like some health thing or whatever." And he's like, "No, you killed me." And so she's like, "I did not." So he's refusing to go with her. So she can't do her job because he won't go with her. And so she has to try and basically figure out who killed him and why they killed him. And there's also some other, there's some other shady things that are going on with the company that she works for and some people that work for them. Yeah, so it was a good time. It kind of has like a cozy mystery vibe, but also a little bit of harder hitting topics with it. So this is actually the first in a series, and the second one comes out in December of this year. So and it's called A Grim Reaper's Guide to Cheating Death. So I will probably read it because yeah, I enjoyed this one. I had a good time with it. The second book I picked up was October by Katya Balin. This was such a good story. I actually ended up bawling when I was reading this. So basically we are following a little girl, October. She lives in the woods with her dad, and her mom left when she was very young. And when I say they live in the woods, they live off the land. Like their house is like a log house, and they are, you know, hunting for their food, growing food. They only go into town like once or twice a year to like stock up on things that they need. She doesn't want anything to do with her mom. Her birthday is in October, and that's why she's called October. But each year her mom, you know, tries to come back and see her on her birthday, but she like runs away, and she always climbs up into a tree. She doesn't want anything to do with her mom. And her dad's like, "She wants to see you, you know, just give her a chance." And she's like, "No." And then one of the times when the mom comes out, she climbs up the tree. The dad tries to go up and get her. He ends up falling out of a tree, and he gets injured very, very bad. So he has to go to the hospital. So then she has to go with the mom, and she doesn't want to go with the mom, but she has to go with the mom because dad's in the hospital, and she's feeling guilty and bad that her dad got hurt, and just going through the emotions of thinking it's her fault and that he's not going to want to, go back home with her, and she has to go stay with her mother for a while. The writing is very descriptive and kind of theatrical at times. We are, getting the perspective of October. Anyway, she has to go live with her mom, and of course everything's boring and white, and it's in this big city, and it's stupid. And then she has to go to school, which, everyone's different. Excuse the tippy taps. My dog's walking around. And so we have her emotions of dealing with, new people and trying to make friends. She obviously misses her lifestyle. She doesn't go to school. Like, she just kind of learns on her own. They have a bunch of books and stuff. And so, yeah, she's going to school. And then her mother does get her involved in this like treasure hunting type thing. It's like a group that gets together and they do like scavenging, like from what the sea brings in, and they like dig for things. And so she's very interested in that. But yeah, it's just heavy on her emotions of dealing with not, having to like change her lifestyle because her dad's in the hospital and he doesn't get to go home right away. He had to have a surgery. My dogs are freaking out now. One moment. Okay, my husband just got home. We're gonna push through this. Anyway, just so many heartfelt emotions of like, the family dynamics and her trying to figure out, the relationship with her mom and coming to terms with everything. But it was just so very good. We read this for Gwen's Patreon, and I ended up giving this one 5 stars. The next book I picked up was No Rest for the Wicked by Rachel Louise Adams. I had a NetGalley arc for this, so I'm just going to read my review. It's been almost 20 years since Dolores left her hometown of Little Horton, which is known for its Halloween celebrations and a history of violent deaths on Halloween. Dolores had her own traumatic experience one Halloween night when she was a teenager and had tried to leave the past and memories behind her. She is contacted by the FBI and told that her father is missing, so she returns home in hopes of helping her find her father. There are a couple of murders that happen and seem to be connected to the family and possibly her past trauma, as well as a classmate that went missing when she was a teenager. The story is told in dual timelines, which I enjoyed. We get flashes of when she was a teenager and what happened leading up to her attack, as well as the current timeline where she is trying to piece together what may have happened to her father. A lot of memories start coming to surface, and she starts to realize things weren't as they seem with her family. I like the atmosphere and setting of the town. I thought the pacing and character development was good, and the author took us through a lot of layers. I really enjoyed this twisty mystery thriller and will definitely read from this author again. So yeah, so her father was like a previous mayor. So he's like well known, and he disappears. So when she does come back, that family dynamic between her stepmother and then her half siblings is like very rocky because she left like as soon as she was able to leave, she left and hasn't been back. So they have a little bit of animosity toward her for her leaving them. And then of course the rocky relationship with the stepmother, and then things that ensued after her attack when she was younger. So she just kind of is dealing with all of that and being back home, and then like memories start to come to light that she didn't remember things how she thought she did, and then there's other murders that are happening and she's trying to figure out like what's going on and what their connection is. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. And then the last book I read, I actually read this one all month long. It was like an Advent style book that you read 1 chapter a day, and that was The 31st Trick-or-Treater by Ben Farthing. I actually really enjoyed this one at the jump. Like, it was like really good. So we're following, a town, and it's Halloween and they're out trick-or-treating. So 30 kids go missing that night, all at the same time. So it's obviously something like supernatural happening. So the kids have been gone almost a year, and then in October of the next year, kids start coming back one at a time. They're just showing back up. There's nobody with them. They can't find anyone dropping them off. They're just showing up at this school in this town, and yeah, all the parents are freaking out. Like, they don't know, where they've been, but when they're coming back, they look exactly how they did when they left. Like, they're the same size, they have the same costumes that they were in when they were trick-or-treating. They've like not changed at all. So it's almost like for everybody in the town it's been a year, but for the kids it's been like minutes. It looks like nothing. So it's kind of like a parallel universe type of thing happening. So basically the kids that are coming back said that the 31st trick-or-treater says he's coming back. Yeah, so it was mostly enjoyable. I feel like there was a lot of like kind of like holes and things that could have been explained better, or we didn't really get answers that I kind of wanted to get at the end of it. But I mean, I enjoyed the experience. I read it with a few friends, and we would like Marco Polo each other, like talking about our thoughts after we read it each day. So overall, it was a pretty good time. I don't know, I may have enjoyed it more if I just read it like straight through, but again, I still didn't get the answers that I was looking for, so I don't know if that would have affected, you know, my reading of it. But yeah, so I ended up giving this one 3 stars. And now for my October stats, I read a total of 15 books and my average rating was 3.93. I didn't add up my pages because I ain't got time for that. Like I said, life be lifing right now. This is what you get. So hopefully for November, I will keep up on recording my updates as the weeks go, and my wrap up will be more cohesive for you. So that is it for my September and October wrap ups. Let me know if you read any of these books, how you liked them. Make sure to like this video, subscribe if you're not already, and until my next video, friends, be yourself, be awesome, be kind. Bye.